In a shocking move, General Electric, GE, one of the most iconic names in American industry, has just announced the closure of multiple factories across the U.S. and the firing of 12,000 workers. But that's not all. GE is also shifting its production lines overseas, with new factories set up in Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. This decision comes amid rising trade tensions, particularly in light of President Trump's aggressive tariff policies, which were originally designed to protect American jobs. But the unintended consequence? A massive job loss and an exodus of American manufacturing jobs. Is this the true cost of protecting American interests? Comment 1 if you agree with the decision to move production abroad due to rising tariffs, or comment 0 if you believe it's a dangerous trend for American workers. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Now let's dive into the full story. General Electric, GE, one of the prominent names in American industry, recently made headlines with its announcement to lay off 12,000 employees and close several factories in the U.S. Once a symbol of American manufacturing, GE now faces significant challenges amid growing economic, political, and tariff tensions. These decisions have not only disrupted the industry, but also raised critical questions about the future of the U.S. economy and how global companies will navigate the changing political landscape. GE, long known for its innovation and creativity in American manufacturing, is currently grappling with financial pressures and rising costs. As a result, the company has decided to close several key factories and relocate production to countries like Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. This decision wasn't made abruptly, but was the result of careful consideration, stemming from reduced profits and a shift in global production methods. One of the key reasons behind this decision is the strict tariff policies implemented by President Donald Trump's administration. These tariffs, intended to protect domestic jobs, have led to unintended consequences. The high import taxes have made production in the U.S. more expensive, forcing companies like GE to consider moving operations abroad to maintain efficiency. Since President Trump took office, one of the most prominent policies he introduced was imposing high tariffs on imported goods, particularly from countries like China and the European Union. While the goal of this policy was to protect domestic industries and create jobs for American workers, it has faced significant pushback from major corporations, including GE. The imposition of tariffs not only increased production costs in the U.S., but also reduced the competitiveness of American companies in the global market. Companies like GE were left with a difficult choice: retain domestic production at high costs, or move production overseas to take advantage of lower labor costs and reduce tariffs. Closing factories and shifting production abroad has become a necessary option to protect the company's bottom line. GE's decision to lay off workers and close factories serves as a cautionary tale about the unforeseen consequences of tariff policies and trade tensions. While the intention behind tariffs was to protect domestic manufacturing, it has inadvertently placed large corporations in a difficult position, leading to workforce reductions and the relocation of production overseas. This not only affects the company, but also impacts the local communities where these factories once operated. The lesson that GE and other companies can learn from this situation is the importance of considering global factors when making production decisions. As the global economy becomes increasingly interconnected, tariff policies can have unintended consequences that companies must contend with. Moving production overseas may offer short-term cost savings, but it also creates long-term challenges related to job loss and economic stability at home. The layoff of 12,000 GE workers will have a significant impact on the communities where the company operates. The workers who lose their jobs will face financial hardships and struggle to find new employment. This will be even more challenging when factories close and production moves abroad. The loss of these jobs will not only affect the direct workers, but also impact related industries and services. Furthermore, GE's decision highlights a larger issue within the U.S. economy: the growing imbalance between thriving regions and those that are struggling. As major companies like GE relocate production overseas, traditional industrial communities are left behind, and workers in these areas face rising unemployment and a lack of job opportunities. Since the U.S. government, under President Donald Trump's leadership, began imposing strict tariff policies, large corporations like General Electric, GE, have been faced with a crucial decision. Continue producing domestically at higher costs, or shift production abroad to reduce expenses and maintain competitiveness. GE, committed to reducing production costs and maintaining profitability, chose to relocate part of its manufacturing operations to countries with lower labor costs, such as Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. One of the key factors behind GE's decision to move production abroad is the tariff policy enacted by the Trump administration, particularly the tariffs on imported goods from China and other countries. The goal of these tariffs was to protect domestic manufacturing and encourage job creation in the U.S. However, the reality has shown that this policy has significantly increased production costs in the U.S. When tariffs were imposed, the cost of raw materials and imported components from abroad became much more expensive. This forced manufacturing companies to reconsider their production strategies. Companies like GE, which already had a global production system and supply chain, faced the dilemma of higher production costs while being unable to raise product prices without losing international market competitiveness. As a result, rather than maintaining domestic production, many companies were forced to move manufacturing abroad to benefit from lower labor costs and reduced tariffs. One of the main reasons GE chose to outsource production is the significantly lower labor costs in countries like Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. Labor costs in these regions are much lower than in the U.S., allowing GE to significantly reduce production costs. Additionally, these countries often offer tax incentives to foreign companies, encouraging major corporations to invest in their factories and production facilities. These incentives include tax breaks, export tax exemptions, and other financial support policies, making production in these countries more attractive. Shifting production to Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia not only helped GE reduce manufacturing costs, but also allowed the company to maintain flexibility in its global supply chain. With factories in low-cost regions, GE was able to maintain profitability despite rising tariffs and increasing production costs in the U.S. While GE's decision to relocate production may help the company maintain profitability in the short term, it also has far-reaching consequences for the U.S. economy. This shift not only results in the loss of thousands of jobs, but also impacts local communities where GE's factories once operated. The workers who lose their jobs will face financial difficulties and struggles to find new employment. Moreover, related businesses and service providers will also be negatively affected by the factory closures. Furthermore, GE's move highlights a significant challenge to the U.S. government's tariff policies. While tariffs were intended to protect domestic companies, the rising production costs have left major companies like GE with no other choice but to move production abroad to remain competitive. This raises the question of whether the tariff policy truly achieves its goal of protecting domestic jobs when it ultimately results in job losses and a decline in domestic manufacturing. The lesson from GE's decision is the need for careful consideration of the comprehensive impacts of tariff policies on businesses and the economy. While tariffs may benefit certain industries in the short term, they can also lead to unintended consequences for manufacturing companies and the communities that depend on these industries. It is crucial to find balanced solutions that protect domestic production while ensuring sustainable economic development, especially in a globalized and interconnected world. Additionally, GE's decision to outsource production reflects a global trend. Companies are increasingly seeking low-cost manufacturing locations and tax incentives to optimize profits. However, this also poses a major challenge for countries seeking to maintain the growth of domestic manufacturing industries. When General Electric, GE, decided to lay off thousands of workers and close factories in the U.S., the impact was not limited to GE itself. Local communities and the economy in areas where these factories operated were hit hard. This decision not only affected the company, but also triggered a series of broad economic and social issues. Below are the key consequences for local communities and the economy when GE pulls out of U.S. manufacturing regions. The towns and communities where GE has its factories often rely heavily on jobs and income generated by these factories. When the company closes plants and cuts jobs, the direct employees are left without work, which has a profound impact on them and their families. These workers not only lose their primary income, but also face uncertainty in their lives as they are forced to find new jobs in a job market that is already highly competitive. In addition to the direct impact on GE workers, businesses and industries that support GE will also experience negative effects. Suppliers of raw materials, logistics services, maintenance companies, and other related industries depend on GE's operations. When GE scales back production or relocates it abroad, these businesses lose customers, leading to a decline in revenue and jobs. This creates a negative cycle, as the local economy struggles to recover from the shock of mass job losses. Beyond the issue of job losses, one of the long-term and harder-to-address effects on communities where GE operates is the weakening of the local economy, especially when major companies like GE close their factories and move production abroad. GE plants not only contributed labor, but also played a significant role in the local budgets through taxes. When GE's factories close, not only do the jobs decrease, but the tax revenue for local governments also declines. The cities and towns could face severe budget shortfalls, making it difficult to maintain essential public services such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and public safety. This not only reduces the quality of life for residents, but also creates an unfavorable environment for other businesses looking to invest in the area. Moreover, the reduction in tax contributions from major companies like GE will increase the financial burden on small businesses and households in the community. Local governments will have to seek alternative sources of income to compensate for the budget shortfall, leading to increased taxes on individuals and smaller companies. This could further weaken the local economy, as small businesses may struggle or even close due to rising operating costs. One of the key reasons behind GE's decision to move production is the benefits of tax incentives and low labor costs in countries like Mexico, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. However, when large companies shift production abroad, the local communities lose out on the important tax benefits these companies previously provided. When GE leaves, communities that once depended on the tax contributions of this company will have to find other sources of income to maintain operations. This is especially difficult as the decrease in income from both individuals and businesses reduces their ability to contribute to the local budget. Cities and towns may face economic downturns when there are no stable sources of revenue to maintain public services and operations. Additionally, the weakening of the local economy comes from a loss of trust among residents in the current economic and political policies. Large companies like GE play a critical role in maintaining the stability and development of local economies. When they decide to move production abroad, people may feel abandoned and concerned about the future of their community. This creates a negative cycle where residents and small businesses lose faith in the area's potential for growth. Comment 1 if you agree with the significant impact that GE's departure from U.S. manufacturing areas has caused, or comment 0 if you disagree with this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us. Now let's continue following the next developments. The global economic structure has undergone significant changes over the past few decades, particularly in the context of globalization and technological advancements. Major companies such as General Electric, GE, Honeywell, and Caterpillar have had to adapt to a new economic environment where labor costs and tariffs play a crucial role in determining the success of production and business strategies. While developed nations like the US continue to maintain multinational corporations and large manufacturing hubs, changes in the economic structure have driven other countries, especially in regions like Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America, to offer more attractive manufacturing environments. Low labor costs, strong tax incentives, and open economic policies have created ideal conditions for large companies to shift production to these regions. This move not only helps companies save costs, but also enhances their global competitiveness. Countries like Mexico, China, India, and European Union member states are actively creating more favorable conditions for manufacturing. One of the key factors driving this change is the low labor costs in developing countries. In contrast, countries like the US, with high labor costs and strict tax policies, are struggling to maintain domestic manufacturing hubs. These regions offer tax incentives, export tax exemptions, and other financial supports to attract large corporations to set up their production facilities there. For instance, Mexico has become an attractive destination for U.S. manufacturing companies due to its low labor costs and favorable geographic location. Eastern European and Southeast Asian countries like Poland, Hungary, and Vietnam have also garnered attention from large corporations thanks to tax incentives and stable economic environments. Large companies can take advantage of these incentives to lower production costs, which in turn allows them to stay competitive in the global market. The shift in the global economic structure has forced large companies, including GE, Honeywell, and Caterpillar, to adjust their production strategies to adapt to the new economic environment. While GE has opted to move part of its production to countries with low labor costs, Honeywell and Caterpillar have also followed suit by restructuring their global supply chains. GE, a long-standing symbol of American manufacturing, has moved production to Mexico and Eastern European countries, where labor costs are much lower than in the US. This move not only helps GE reduce production costs, but also enables the company to maintain its global competitiveness, especially as tariffs and political factors become more complex. Honeywell and Caterpillar, two other giants in the industrial manufacturing sector, have also adopted similar strategies by moving production to low-cost countries. Honeywell, with its extensive global production network, has invested in manufacturing facilities in Mexico and China to optimize costs. Caterpillar, which specializes in industrial equipment manufacturing, has also shifted part of its production to countries in Asia and Eastern Europe to reduce production costs and maintain competitiveness. In addition to shifting production, these large companies have also restructured their business strategies to maximize opportunities presented by new markets. Companies are not only changing where they produce, but also how they deliver products and services to better serve customers, grow revenue, and reduce risks from external factors such as tariffs and trade policies. The departure of General Electric, GE, one of the longest-standing and largest names in American manufacturing, serves as a clear example of the negative impact of high tariffs and protectionist policies. The Trump administration implemented high tariffs on imports, particularly from China and other countries, with the goal of protecting domestic jobs and creating a fairer economic environment for American companies. However, these policies inadvertently increased production costs, making it difficult for large companies, including GE, to maintain production in the US while staying competitive. Tariffs led to higher input costs for raw materials and reduced the competitiveness of American-made products on the global market. In this context, GE and other large companies were forced to move production abroad to reduce costs, taking advantage of low labor costs and tax incentives offered by other countries. This not only resulted in job losses domestically, but also weakened US manufacturing, as companies moved to regions with more favorable environments. One of the key lessons from GE's exit is the need for a long-term industrial strategy and strengthening national competitiveness. While tariffs may help protect some industries in the short term, to maintain industrial strength in the long run, the US needs a comprehensive industrial strategy that goes beyond tariffs and includes investment in innovation, workforce development, and modern infrastructure. The US needs to restructure its industries to adapt to changes in the global economy. This requires coordination between industrial policies and private sector initiatives to create a competitive environment and foster innovation. Companies like GE need appropriate strategies to remain competitive, including investment in new technologies, the development of creative products and services, and increased production efficiency. In today's globalized context, companies face not only domestic competition but also fierce international competition. Countries like China, Mexico, India, and Eastern European nations are creating attractive manufacturing environments thanks to low labor costs, strong tax incentives, and open economic policies. This presents a significant challenge to developed countries like the US, as companies move production abroad to reduce costs and maximize profits. However, globalization also brings opportunities. Companies can leverage new markets, expand production scales, and reach international customers. Countries with effective industrial strategies, combining investment in technology, infrastructure, and human resources, will be able to create significant opportunities to maintain and enhance their competitive strength in the global market. The future of American industry faces numerous challenges in the context of globalization. U.S. companies are under pressure from countries with lower production costs and strong tax incentives. To maintain a competitive advantage in the globalized world, the U.S. needs to restructure its industries, not just rely on tariffs, but implement a comprehensive industrial strategy. This includes investing in technology, innovation, developing high-quality human capital, and modernizing infrastructure. While tariff policies may provide temporary benefits, they are not a long-term solution to maintaining the industrial strength of the U.S. A more comprehensive industrial strategy, combining tax policies, investments in technology and innovation, workforce development, and improved productivity, will be key in helping the U.S. retain its competitive edge in the global economy. The U.S. needs to shift from a protectionist strategy to one of sustainable development so that businesses can face the challenges of globalization without losing their industrial power. Thank you all for watching the video. If you found these insights helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us. Leave a sub to stay updated with our latest videos. We will continue to cover other important developments in upcoming videos. Thank you and see you again soon.